No matter where you're going or for how long, how you pack can affect your trip. From making sure you have what you need to bringing along way too much that becomes hard to manage. In this episode of the Sunshine Travelers podcast, we're sharing practical packing tips to help you travel smarter, not heavier. From gear and gadgets to planning your outfits and not forgetting the essentials, we'll help you feel more organized and less stressed before you even leave home. We're Scott and Melissa, the Sunshine Travelers.
We're all about exploring the world and sharing the journey with you, whether you're a seasoned traveler, dreaming of your next adventure, or just here for the stories.
No matter where you are on your travel journey, we've got firsthand experiences, tips, and plenty of inspiration from some of the most amazing places on Earth.
So buckle up and get ready to travel with us.
So packing is one thing that for a trip, you're going to do it regardless whether you go for one night or 6 weeks, and it affects a lot of aspects of it. So packing really is a skill, and it takes a little practice to pack light, but still have everything that you need. And we also think that there's always something that we can improve upon, and that's true of most people too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Are you looking to plan your next unforgettable adventure? At Sunshine Travelers Experiences, we specialize in helping you create tailor-made travel journeys that turn your vacation dreams into reality. Whether you're craving a relaxing beach escape, an awe-inspiring cultural journey, or a thrilling outdoor adventure, we can help. Why choose Sunshine Travelers Experiences? Personalized itineraries designed just for you, expert travel advice and insider tips, seamless booking from start to finish, exclusive access to top destinations and hidden gems. We also book cruises, all-inclusives, groups, tours, and so much more. If you're unsure where to even start planning that bucket list trip, start by asking us. Then let Sunshine Travelers Experiences handle the planning so you can focus on making the memories. Explore now, sunxtravel.com. If you have any questions, email us info@sunshinetravelers.com.
We did really well back in 2019 when we took a 6-week trip to Europe, right? We had decided that we were going to carry a backpack and have everything that we needed in one bag because we needed to be able to navigate a cruise and cities, excursions, beaches, going on trains and ferries and stuff like that. So we really did well, right? We brought along the amount of toiletries we needed, and then we were able to buy some more. We washed clothes along the way. But then on our first trip to Europe post-pandemic, we felt that we were out of practice, right? We had like way too much stuff. Now, granted, we have talked about this. We had moved to Florida and we were going to Scotland, but it was ridiculous, the amount of stuff. And so you really can get out of practice. And so we just wanted to share with you some things because we have definitely gotten better. I mean, there are trips where it's like, okay, I could have left out these 2 or 3 things. And we'll talk about that in a second. Just giving yourself some slack, right? And just trying to learn some things all along the way and improve. And when you see gadgets and gear that might help you out, if you want to give them a try. So we're going to go through 10 tips to help you improve your packing game. And then, like I said, some of these we still even need to do better.
Yeah, I remember going to Belize during the pandemic. And even then, we knew we were going to just hang out and relax at the beach. And we said then, we were like, we brought way too much stuff with us. And so you get out of a habit. And then I feel like on the last few trips, because I've been combining a work trip along with, we added some days on it for personal, I end up with so much stuff just because I have to take things for work. And I don't know. I think that that's something that you just can't avoid, but I sure would love to figure it out.
Yeah. But I feel like you do a really good job. Like you're a quick packer and you do a really good job. You seem to kind of have a system and stuff like that. I mean, there are times when you do have to pick up things, but for the most part, I feel like you do a pretty good job. So number 1, I would say, is the most important. is invest in the right packing gear. And this is going to be different for everybody. So we have some various suitcases that we have gotten and collected along the way. We still have those backpacks made by eBags then. I think Samsonite has acquired them now. But for example, you have an old Toomey bag that, despite how raggedy it is, there are times when you carry it because it is the right size, and you would invest in another one like it, but they don't make that particular bag. Like, you've looked, right, several places, and they don't make that particular bag anymore.
Well, actually, the reason that I didn't buy that bag again wasn't because they didn't make it anymore. It was because it's a carry-on size, not an international carry-on size. And if you'll remember, when we were coming back from Slovakia, I was carrying that bag, and Austria Air was like, that's not a carry-on. And they made us end up checking those bags, and so we missed our connection in London.
Yeah, that's true. And so when I say that, in the right packing gear, I mean, so it's really going to depend on what it is that you do, right? So if you always check a bag, then don't worry about necessarily getting that one that, has to be a carry-on or has to be an international carry-on. And that's okay, right? Because you feel comfortable in that size and shape, etc.
Yeah, and for this upcoming trip, I would love to take that e-bag backpack, but unfortunately, I need to be able to carry my laptop for work and our laptop for the podcast because we're going to be recording while we're on that trip. And so I just can't do it with that e-bag and have enough space for all the things that I need.
Right. And so we can't say to you, this is the suitcase you need, right? This is the best suitcase in the world, because I really feel like it's going to be different for everybody. I am probably going to invest in a new suitcase. I've tried for this next trip, I've tried a couple of other ones. I do not prefer the hard side suitcase. I feel like they get broken and the zippers get torn and, they get cracked and all kinds of things. I always had a Samsonite one that I loved that wasn't the clamshell, which is one that folds in half, right? It's more one where you set the things down in it. So I don't know. I'm going to report back, but I think that's, kind of what I'm thinking. But like I said, it really is going to depend on that trip. Also, so some other things, it might not just be the suitcase. It might be the packing cubes. You use one kind that you love, and I have another kind that I love, and that's fine, right? But those help keep us organized. Having something that we put in our carry-on where we organize, chargers and headphones and kind of keep up with that stuff, right? Where do you put your passport? Where do you put your phone? Where do you put those different things? And then what is your carry-on bag like?
Can I say something about that? The thing for all of your cords and cables. Like, to me, that is like one of the most important pieces of anything that I pack on every trip. And I have purchased the 3-way folding charger for my iPhone and my Apple Watch and my AirPods. I can charge all 3 of them from that one device, and it folds up nice and tight. And so I just leave it inside that bag. I have the cable that I need for it. I have a charger that I use with it that I do not take out of that bag. Or if I do, I am very purposeful for putting it right back in once I'm finished. But I keep all of the stuff in that bag because that way I know when I get there, that's one of the first things I pull out and set up is that charging station.
Yeah, because that's one thing you're definitely going to do, right? Especially if you've traveled overnight and you're going to, you've gone internationally, you've got to, charge those phones for a little bit. So I think that is like where you start, right? It's not about the clothes and all that kind of stuff first. It's how are my things going to be organized? Because that really is the key to not taking too much stuff and having a place for everything.
And I also love my Toomey toiletry case. It was a gift. So I will say it's a fairly expensive toiletry case, if you think about it. However, it is really good because it has a pocket on one side and it fits all the stuff that I need and take with me on that. Then I've got a couple of zippers over there for like my razor and my toothpaste and toothbrush, stuff like that fits into that other little side. And then that way, when I get to a country that they're kind of particular about wanting you to open up your toiletry case, I've done this in multiple countries now. I just zip that thing open and because it has a clear plastic liner on the inside. The outside is black, but the inside is that clear plastic. And so they can see what's inside there, and I haven't had any problems with it. And I just really love that.
Yeah. And so, like you said, it would be an investment, but if you could, with a To-Me case like that, like you could use it for years and years.
It'll last for forever.
Yeah. And what I have is actually an LL Bean toiletry case that I literally have had for 30 years. I think you got it for me as a gift, like right after we got married. I have taken that on every trip, right? Because it's the toiletries. So whether it's one night or 6 weeks or whatever, and that thing has held up absolutely so well. So investing in some of those things, and if that's what you love, I mean, these are things that you're not going to buy every single trip, right? You may say, oh, okay, I need something different. I want to try something different. What is out there? But I think that would be the key, is to get those pieces.
Find the one you love and then always keep it in your suitcase. Like all of my toiletries, it's a separate set. So I don't even take the stuff out of there. When I get back, I just put it under the sink. And then when I get ready to go again, I pull it out, put it in the suitcase, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And for me, I have 2 little zipper pouches. One of them is like skincare type stuff, and one of them is makeup, and they go into that. And so I'm not having to pack those things every time. And I think that helps too as well. And so then our second tip would be, now getting into the very specific stuff, is plan ahead, right? So look at the weather, make a list, plan your outfits to mix and match. And so you mentioned about traveling for work and pleasure. You have had some times recently where you're like, okay, if I take these shoes, or what shoes can I take that are going to work for both, right? You know, if it's obviously super dressy or something like that, that's a little bit harder. But thinking through some of those things really helps. And not necessarily for Scott, but for me, like, try things on, think through things that you're going to need to purchase. So we are about to go on a trip in May that involves several countries and some different weather and some walking. And so now we are thinking about, okay, what do we need, and ordering those things, and then making sure that if they're shoes, that they are comfortable and they fit well. Do the clothes fit? Like, don't take a bunch of new clothes that still have the tags on them that then you get over there and they're not going to fit. So probably more for women, but making sure that those things are comfortable as well.
Yeah, and if you buy new shoes and you're going to be doing a lot of walking, think about that. Those need to be broken in. Or I was even reading some reviews on a pair of hiking shoes I was looking at today, and the guy was like, I love your shoes. However, the way that my foot fits inside there in the shape of my foot, it just leaves a little space on the back and it slips. And then he's like, and I've never gotten blisters out of this brand of shoes before, but the way that this particular hiking shoe was designed, he's like, I got 2 or 3 blisters. So you don't want to run into that while you're on a trip, especially if you're doing a hike like what we're going to be doing. And so you want to try to break those in before you go.
Yeah. So just, thinking through that. So it's not necessarily, that part of packing is not just, okay, I'm grabbing my stuff and I'm putting it in my suitcase. I'm thinking through, what kind of things am I going to need to wear? And I mean, that's a great point. I mean, there's nothing worse than that. And especially think about that with kids too, if you're packing for kids.
Yeah. And you mentioned checking the weather. That's so important because, like, just this past week, I had to go to Chicago for work. And when I left here in Jacksonville, it was 82 degrees outside. It was warm. By the time I got to Chicago, it was snowing. And so, if I had taken my clothes for Florida up to Chicago with me, I would have died.
Yeah. And just not knowing, sometimes thinking about, like, on this upcoming trip, we're going to be Germany and then Italy. And you're thinking, oh, it's going to be May. It might be warmer. But where we're going to be, it's going to be a little bit chillier as well. So just part of that is thinking through and then continuing to check some of those things. It's not just the physical act of taking that stuff and putting it in your bag.
So let's talk a little bit about the toiletries that you're going to take and you're going to put into that toiletry bag. Because I see this so many times at the airport where they're pulling out full-size toiletries, full-size shampoos, conditioners, face lotions, all these things, and they're just throwing them in the trash because you're not allowed to take full-size bottles with you.
Yes. And so I would argue even a step further. So even if you are going to check a bag, and yes, Scott and I typically, unless we have some situation where we don't want to check a bag because, for example, when we went on safari, we didn't check a bag because that was all of our stuff. And if something happened to, all of that stuff, we would have been in a mess in some, or did we check a bag at all? I don't think on the way. I think we kept it with us pretty much, right? Anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
But even if you are going to check that bag where you have those toiletries, I would personally argue keep them to that TSA size because that takes up so much space. And then if something happens to those and they leak out, not only have you wasted all that, but then you just have this huge mess. And then you may run into a situation during that time where you may have to, put those in your bag or something like that. So I don't know about for you, but for me, it's not like I go out and buy something different. I simply, and I've tried a bunch of them out, but I get bottles to decant those things in and use the things I use at home. And sometimes I even just use the little bottles at home and then just keep on refilling them. That way I always, like I mentioned, I have that little pouch. So that's what I would argue. I know that's an unpopular opinion and a lot of people have told me, no, like I'm going to take my big bottles.
I've had so many people say, I have to have my shampoo, my conditioner, and that's just what they're going to do. But I've also seen on several trips that I was on with those people, their luggage didn't make it. And then they were just using hotel shampoo and conditioner for most of the time that they were there. Really, quite honestly, if you're traveling overseas, yeah, you're going to take pictures, but most people are going to be interested in where you went, not what your hair looks like. That's just Scott's opinion. I know that's probably not right with some of our listeners, and they would argue with me profusely on that one.
Yeah, so that's what I would say. That saves a ton of space. And we've honestly never had any problem. So I will say sometimes I do bring a little thing of conditioner. We were in Mexico one time and we couldn't find conditioner to save our life.
That's
so
true.
For me, going to the beach and stuff like that, sometimes I'll bring some kind of deep conditioner type stuff, but everything else, body wash and stuff like that, I can pretty much get.
All right. Well, when you're on the plane, often, especially if you're on longer flights, you're going to need access to some of these things that we were talking about earlier, where I was talking about my chargers and those cables. That's something that I would recommend you put in your carry-on bag. And then that way, when you're on the plane, you just pop it down. And if you need a charger, you can charge your phone or your headphones or whatever it is that you need. And all of that's right there with you.
Yeah, same. I have a little case that's almost like I think it originally came with a packing cube set, but it was kind of designed for that. I keep my Kindle in it. I keep my chargers in. I keep my headphones, my iFly. I keep like the extra credit cards that are not
Talking about your AirFly.
Oh, AirFly. Is that what it's called? AirFly? Okay. Yeah. I keep just all that stuff. And so then that way, like I just have that with me. I can put it in the pocket. I can have it in the little bag. If I have something in the seat in front of me or something like that, I keep that in my backpack and I use it just like that when I'm at home. Right? And we travel a good bit. You may not travel as much, but I use that just like that at home. And then that way I know that everything is exactly where it is, all the time. And so then the other thing I would say about this is that then put that stuff in the same place every single time. Right. So have a place where okay, here is where I'm going to stick my phone. Here's where I'm going to stick my passport. If you have if you have some travel documents or something like that, we have a little plastic sleeve thing that if we have to print those things out, sometimes they've said you need to have your visas or you need to have your authorizations or something like that. We have carried those, but especially that passport and that phone, right? Because they're always talking about you can't go back on the plane to get this stuff. And so just, not having to panic, like, where is that? So if you have a special pocket or that special case or something like that, that would be a big tip.
I think it's also good not to be fumbling around looking for that stuff because usually you're in line somewhere and then you'll see somebody, they're like unpacking their bag right there in line and people are having to go around them because they can't find their stuff.
Yeah. And I'm the person who checks, like, do I have my passport like 50 times? So I want to have it in somewhere really easy to find. All right. So number 5, do not pack your medicines or the supplements that you feel like you absolutely have to have in a checked bag at all, ever. if your bag is lost or something happens, let's say, yes, you plan, you check the bag and then you plan to get there the next day. And so even if the bag, makes it, but there's a delay or something like that, we have had times. And I know that, they say it's not supposed to happen, right? The plane doesn't go without the person doesn't go without the plane, but it happens.
Well, I think the person always has to go on a plane.
Well, yes, but the bag and the plane and you are not at the same time, right?
I think what you meant to say is that the person and the bag are supposed to both be on the plane.
Right. And sometimes that just does not happen.
Yeah.
Right. It may end up, if you have a delay or something happens and you have a change, it has gone on or you have gone on ahead of it. And so you never know. And it might be something, it's just not worth the hassle. Right. So if you have those things, you keep those with you all the time, no matter what.
Yeah. And along the same lines, keep stuff with you just in case you are to get delayed, and spend 12 hours in an airport. You might want to brush your teeth or comb your hair or those type of things. So make sure you're keeping that with you as well. We even often say it's not a bad idea to keep some kind of change of clothes in your carry-on bag.
Yeah, and
especially if you're on a long trip.
Yeah, and I will say that we do not always do this, but I have had a situation when I was traveling one time with our daughter, and there was a delay out of New York. We ended up having to be rerouted. We were going to Greece through Frankfurt, and so when we finally arrived in Greece, our suitcases were not there yet. So thankfully, I had our chargers. We did have a change of clothes. We had our toothbrush and our toiletries and stuff like that, because it actually ended up, we were going to an island and then we were coming back to Athens, and it actually ended up being 3 days before we got our luggage. So we had to buy a bathing suit. So if you're going to a place where, that is kind of like the main thing, pack that. But you're right, having a change of clothes and stuff like that. But definitely toothbrush, chargers, because I don't know what we would have done, right? We got there late at night. So just thinking through those things, we always hope for the best, right? No delays, no cancellations, but you never know. And so you want to be prepared for the absolute worst. Whether you're exploring new cities, relaxing on a beach, or taking a cruise, you can avoid expensive data charges or unreliable Wi-Fi with a GigSky eSIM. Easily get affordable high-speed data in over 190 countries. No physical SIM card required. They even have cruise and land packages, so you're connected both on and off the ship without having to pay for 2 different plans. Download the GigSky app, activate your eSIM, and you're ready to explore. Use code SUNSHINE at checkout to get 10% off any data plan. Stay connected and save on your next international adventure.
This next one is one that we think about a lot when we're traveling. And I'm thinking about it right now as we prepare for this trip we're going on in May, is shoes. And so, when you're packing shoes in your bag, you want those shoes to take up as least space as possible. So ideally, you want to have your smallest shoes inside the bag and your bulkiest shoes on your feet while you're traveling.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Ideally, that's true. And then we would also argue is limiting that number of shoes, that numbers of pairs of shoes, probably 3 maximum, right? Less if you can get away with it, just because they do take up so much room and they're heavy.
I think the people who are going to be yelling at us about the hair care products and the full-size bottles are probably going to disagree with you on this one as well.
Yeah. So how have we kind of gotten around that? Is that I have gotten some tennis shoes that I really like. They're really comfortable for walking, but they look a little bit dressier. Right. So that's kind of how I've gotten around that. When we've gone to a beach destination where you also might have to, it's warm, you might also have to walk through towns, cobblestone streets, finding a pair of shoes that you like that will do all those things. For me, that's been a couple of different versions of Birkenstocks. It could be like Teva type sandals or something like that. I wanted the Birkenstocks specifically because then I could wear it with a sundress and go to dinner and it felt dressier. And so that has helped tremendously to just say, okay, like I want these to be cuter, but they've got to be comfortable as well.
Yeah. So I'm thinking through this, and on our trip, I'm going to need probably 3 pairs of shoes for this trip. I'm going to need my hiking shoes. I'm going to need a pair of shoes that I can wear into the office the first part of the trip. And then I'm going to need like a pair of Crocs or slides or something like that, that after we've walked 6 or 10 miles in a day, that can put on just to kind of rest my feet.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And for me, again, just because Birkenstocks are super comfortable to me, that would probably serve that duty, right? I could wear them with a pair of socks, like if we, I don't know, eat at the hotel for dinner or something like that, or go, to go to breakfast or something like that. So, but that's one thing that we would just encourage you is think through, what kind of shoes can be double duty, triple duty, and that will help a bunch.
Yeah. When I see people at the airport and they have like this big wheeled, cart or two of them with bags just stacked up, I'm always thinking there's at least one suitcase that has nothing but shoes in it.
Yeah, probably so. Now we've used those before, but a lot of times we've had travel gear, and when we went to London and then Iceland, we had to like warmer stuff, and I'm not travel gear, photography equipment, and stuff like that. But yeah, when they're like the massive suitcases, that's true. And so then number 8 would be, now think through the things that are very specific depending on your destination. Now, and this is one where we have forgotten these a good bit and learned along the way. So thinking through, if you are like going to a beach destination, what kind of bag are you going to be able to take like down to the beach or even down to the pool, right? If you're going to stay in a resort, but down to the beach, right? That you can put stuff in, like when, for example, when we go somewhere like the Caribbean or to Europe where, you're driving or you're going to and doing beach shopping or something like that. What are you going to use, but then you can pack, right? Because you can only have your bag and a personal item and not having some big, huge, straw bag. Thinking through something that could be double duty, right? Or a shopping bag. Because remember, in a lot of places in the world, they're going to charge you.
I was just about to say, could you not go to the Aldi or the Lidl or something like that and just get a shopping, or Tesco, and just get one of those reusable shopping bags?
Yeah,
I know it's not fashion, but
yeah, no, I mean, you certainly could do that. I have one of the foldable Longchamp bags, right? That's like waterproof. It's been like everywhere, folds up really small. I can use it for shopping. I can, take it to the beach and not worry about it. But yeah, because we actually have had to, buy some of those and stuff too. So that's just an example. Does the weather look like it's gonna, you're gonna need a rain jacket? Or like if you're doing that beach hopping type thing, do you need some kind of small towel that you can just dry off with and stuff like that? We have had to buy those in France. We've had to buy those in when we went to Curacao. It was fine when we had the hotel, but then the day we were checking out, we were like, oh, we forgot to bring this. So having something really lightweight, and those like Turkish towels do a great job of that. So if you're in Greece, you can pick some up, but other places it might be harder to, find one that's thin and lightweight.
But this almost falls into our next category of items. And it's probably the ones that if you make a list, they kind of fall down to the end, kind of as afterthoughts. Oh, I might need this just in case. And what you want to make sure is that you're limiting how many just in case things you're taking, because that really tends to lead towards overpacking.
Yeah, that's true. That's definitely true. But thinking through, like, is this something that I'm going to use? And I guess the difference is should I bring this just in case, or is this something that I'm going to use a lot? So when we were in Curacao and then Aruba, then we needed that. We needed that in Aruba. When we were in Europe, when we were in France specifically, we went into like a Zara home and bought those towels, and then we used those, right, the rest of the trip. But if you already have, so now we have like a million of them. So it's like we don't need to like really buy any more of those. But just thinking through, like, am I really going to use this? So, a rain jacket, that might be, there's no rain in the forecast, right? Because in that particular trip to Europe, we lugged those rain jackets all over. And guess what? I don't think we wore them at all. So in that case, it was like, oh, we definitely needed those towels, but we definitely didn't need the rain jacket that time of the year. So just thinking through some of those things, is it going to be where you might need a hat or a scarf or a sun hat, right? A lot of times you've forgotten like a ball cap or a sun hat or something like that. And then, and it's not the end of the world when you have to pick them up, and it can kind of be a souvenir, but
yeah, I think for guys, especially when you're going places that are sunny, taking that hat is a good thing. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten somewhere, wasn't expecting it to be really sunny, and then it's just full on sun. and then like my face and head gets burnt. But that really goes back to if I hadn't have taken my sunscreen moisturizer out of my bag, out of my toiletry bag, then it would have been there.
Yeah. A couple of other things, and then we'll move on, is I always like to carry some kind of Ziploc bags in a couple of different sizes, right? That can just be great for just anything that you have that ends up needing to go in those. Wet clothes can go in them. Dirty things can go in them. So you just don't ever know. Dirty shoes, like if you go somewhere and then your shoes end up being really nasty or something like that, that can be a great place or a great thing to do. And then finally, like think through, okay, am I going somewhere where it's hotter, but we're going to churches and I need to cover my shoulders, I need to cover my knees. What can I do about that? And so then the last tip that we would give you is that during your trip and then after your trip, as you're unpacking and thinking through all your great memories, just reflect on how you did as far as packing, right? Did you have so much stuff that it was like really a pain to carry these things, get them in the airport, put them in the plane, put them on the train, the ferry, whatever? Did you wear or use most of it? Did it end up just being wasted space? Think through what you wish you had.
Wasted space and wasted weight.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. What did you wish that you had, right? Some of these things that maybe Scott has mentioned about organizing his tech gear or that kind of thing. Like, what is it that you would have wanted it to be organized better, for example? And then think through like what needs to be replaced. So I don't know, that Timmy bag you had, like the wheels were falling off and it did, or something like that, I
don't know what happened. We were in Slovakia and we were checking out the hotel, and I guess I ran over somebody else's wheel that had like blown to pieces.
Okay.
And I thought it was mine, and my wheels were making a noise, and like the metal frame is showing through where there used to be piping around the edge. So like it definitely shows a lot of wear and tear, but it's just the perfect size when I don't need an international carry-on and I need something just a little bit larger, but not a full-on check bag.
Yeah. Or what needs to be replaced, that suitcase I took to London and Iceland that was duct taped together. And so that's why I said hard-sided, just don't. I feel like they always get broken.
Just stay away from the hard-sided cases. I've never seen one that comes off of the line that doesn't have some kind of blemish or is cracked or whatever. You're going to regret that purchase immediately.
Yeah.
First trip.
And so here's what I would say, though. You always think you're going to remember these things, but make a note somewhere and jot that down. So even if it's a note in your phone where you say, what I need to pack or what I need to pack better or something where you can find it. And so then that way, when you're getting ready to pack, it might be months down the road, you can go say, oh yeah, let me go replace this. Or this was a reminder to, take this instead, or that.
Well, let's go one step further. So you have an Amazon or something like that list of all the things that we use for packing. So if you're sitting here and you're listening to this podcast and you know that you have some of those gaps, if you will, you don't have a thing for your tech gear, or you don't have a toiletry case, or you don't have a suitcase that you like, go and look at this packing list gear that we have and just go ahead and order it and get prepared for your next trip, because we want you to be prepared to travel more and better. And so everything that we talked to you about is hopefully encouraging you to travel more and more often. So go ahead and do it. Just put it out there. You're going to do it. You're going to travel more. And so you're going to go ahead and order those things that you need right now.
That's a good point. So go to sunshinetravelers.com/pack. And so we will have links to those things there to where you can easily go just check out those links. And then that way you'll have them to refer back to. And then we'll also put on that same page a link to our free ultimate packing guide. Has some checklists that will kind of help you as well. And yeah, so that's where that will be.
No matter where your next adventure takes you, whether it's a weekend getaway or a once-in-a-lifetime journey, how you pack can set the tone for your entire trip. With a little planning, the right gear, and a thoughtful approach, you'll feel more prepared and less stressed, leaving more room for spontaneity and joy along the way. Did we miss something that's always on your packing list? We'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, scottingsunshinetravelers.com, and let me know. The world is full of sunshine and surprises. Make 2025 the year that you explore beyond the familiar. That's a wrap on this episode. We hope it gave you some inspiration for your next adventure.
If you enjoyed the show, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps others find us and keeps the travel conversations going.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe so you never miss a new episode.
And come hang out with us on Instagram or Facebook at Sunshine Travelers Podcast. That's Travelers with 1 L.
Most importantly, share this episode with a friend. You never know, they just might become your next great travel companion.